Through the overnight, some of that heavy rain, and over the next few days we'll still have chances of rain. I don't think we'll see as much as we did today, but still some of that off and on wet weather for the next several days. As we take a look at the radar again, the overall pattern has been shrinking as far as the rain shield, but we still have these pockets of some more moderate and heavy rain. You can see how that area of green is slowly starting to shrink here across western parts of Hampton Roads, but we still have that moderate rain on the south side. Some light to moderate rain across the peninsula, middle peninsula. Things are starting to dry out, a little bit of mist and drizzle around, some more light to moderate rain up across the eastern shore. But some of the heaviest of the rain is through parts of Chesapeake around St. Bride's and Hickory. Should work your way up 168. Some heavy rain Thalia out towards the ocean front, Kempsville right along 264. That is working its way off towards the north, getting ready to head up towards the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. Some lighter amounts of rain back towards Franklin, a little more moderate rain around Suffolk. And across northeastern North Carolina, starting to see that rain diminish across parts of Washington County and Turl County. Still some light to moderate rain across Camden, Currituck, Pasquotank, Perquimans, and Chewan. And you can see how that moisture is just streaming off towards the north, and that's because of tropical storm, or what was subtropical storm Alberto, and an area of high pressure situated off the coastline. You can see subtropical storm Alberto as it came ashore, now a subtropical depression, but the two of those combined, remember, counterclockwise flow around low pressure, clockwise around high, just pulling in that tropical moisture. So we'll continue to see some of these showers and isolated thunderstorms over the next several days. Tropical depression, subtropical depression Alberto has continued to weaken as it made its way on shore. Winds now down to 35 miles per hour, and it will continue to work its way up the Mississippi River Valley. And we talked about it over the past few days that a subtropical system usually has a lot of its rain on the north and east side of it, and with the storm moving this way, we'll be on the east side, so we'll still have some of this unsettled weather over the next few days. Here's that shield of rain continuing to lift off towards the north. By tomorrow morning, we should be looking at mostly cloudy skies, a few showers around, certainly not as much rain as what we saw during the day today. As we get into the afternoon, a few spotty showers around. We'll put those odds of rain at around 60%. We'll probably lower that just a little bit tomorrow. A few evening showers. Temperatures tomorrow up near 80 degrees, and really we'll do it all over again on Wednesday. Mostly cloudy skies to start the day, maybe a peak of sunshine or two, and a few hit or miss showers or thunderstorms. Those chances for rain go down even a little bit more on Wednesday. Cloudy skies right now. You can see the rain and some of the reduced visibility out there with the heavy rain over downtown Norfolk. 69 degrees, winds are calm. 67 in Chesapeake and Gloucester, Memphis, 72 in Hertford, 69 Matthews and Hampton and Wakefield, and 73 degrees in Elizabeth City. So 69 tonight, some occasional rain, some heavier downpours, and tomorrow 80 degrees, mostly cloudy skies. We'll go scattered showers, not as much rain as we saw during the day today. A few evening showers, 71 tomorrow night, and 81 on Wednesday. Scattered showers, possibly a thunderstorm. For Thursday, we're up to 86 degrees, about a 50% chance of rain. Hot on Friday, up to 89 degrees. And really those isolated chances for showers and maybe a thunderstorm continue Saturday, Sunday, into Monday as temperatures start to drop.